All right, hey everybody, it's Miss Cox from Carver Elementary. I'm teaching a first grade CKLA knowledge lesson today. Before we got out of school, we started learning about the earth, and today we're going to read about the earth inside out part 1. All right, so I have Jerry the geologist here, and we're going to get started with our story. I woke up this morning and I started digging this hole in the ground. Each time I push my shovel into the earth, I bring up a load of soil. And I've noticed that each load of soil has a few rocks in it. I'm digging this hole today to teach you about the outer layer of the earth. Think about the outside of something. All right? There's a lot of different things that have layers. Think of like a sheet on a bed and a blanket on a bed. There's different layers on top of the bed. Think about some other things that have layers too. Okay? Beneath your backyard, beneath the sidewalk, beneath the school, beneath me right now, actually, beneath most every place that people live, there is soil, which sometimes is called dirt. Different types of soil appear in the earth in layers. Each layer of soil is made up of different things, which can give it a different color or a different texture. Texture means what something feels like when you touch it. The thickness of the soil varies or is different depending on where you live. In some places on earth, the soil is several feet thick. This is several feet, and then this is several inches. So just to give you an idea, some of the soil is several feet thick. In other places on earth, it's just a few inches. And in some places on the earth, there's no soil at all. Here, where I live, the soil is rich and dark near the surface. However, as I dig deeper into the earth, I can see a definite change in color. The color in this soil has changed from dark brown to bright red. That color change means I have reached a layer of reddish clay. It's getting a little harder to dig now, so I'll have to use my pickaxe. This is a pickaxe that he has to use to get past that hard dirt. Clank! My pick just hit something really hard beneath the red clay. The farther down I go, the harder the clay becomes. Pretty soon I will hit a bedrock, a solid layer of hard rock that I won't be able to dig through with my shovel. I dug this hole to show you that there are different layers of soil and rock beneath your feet. The further you go into the earth, the more things change. The dark soil on top is fairly easy to dig into with a shovel, but the deeper layer of clay is hard to dig because it has been compacted or squished by the weight or pressure of everything above it. I want you to remember that word pressure. Pressure is when that soil is building up and pushing it down. There's so much pressure down there, it makes it so hard. But remember that word pressure because we're going to hear it a bunch throughout our story. All right, here's our next picture. Remember, we're talking about the earth from the inside out. This diagram shows you what the inside of the earth would look like if you could cut out a big chunk of it. The crust is the outermost layer of the earth, represented here by a thin brown line. And that brown probably represents what? Dirt, that's right. I've been digging into the very outermost portion of the crust today. So that's what Jerry the geologist is digging into, that outermost part of the earth, that brown layer. Most of the earth is rock, and most of that rock is beneath the crust in the other 3 layers. The mantle in red, the outer core in orange, and the inner core in yellow. The distance from the surface where you and I live all the way to the middle of the inner core is nearly 4,000 miles. That's the distance between New York and California. This earth is one thick planet. All right, next, I will teach you more about the mantle, outer core, and the inner core next time. For now, let's focus on the thinnest layer, the crust. The Earth's crust is between 3 and 20 miles, depending on where you are on Earth. Most people, plants, and animals live on the surface or outermost edge of the crust. Remember, the Earth's surface is covered by oceans and continents. Everything alive on Earth lives in, on, or above these oceans and continents on the crust. For example, you and your dog live on the crust. Birds fly in the air above the crust, and fish swim in the water that is flowing on the crust. Worms and moles, on the other hand, they live underground, or they live in the crust because they live in the dirt. All right, the crust is where geologists like me, Jerry the geologist, they learn about the history of the Earth. In the crust, we find different layers of rock, which teach us about different periods of time in the Earth's history. Remember that Earth is 4,500,000,000 years old. Each layer of rock was formed during a different period of time in the Earth's history. So we can study each layer to learn about each period of time. Geologists search the crust for clues about the history of Earth. Can you look at this picture and tell me what you think this is a picture of? It's a very famous place. It's really big and deep. It's called the Grand Canyon. Here, the geology of the Earth's crust sits like an open book waiting to be read. If I'm walking by and I see an open book, that's easy to learn about and read. This is easy to walk by, and you can see all the different layers in the rock. And geologists go to the Grand Canyon and study the different layers, and they can actually study the history of the Earth that way. Layer upon layer of different rock tells the geologist when this place was covered with a cool ocean and when it was not. Isn't it crazy to know that the Grand Canyon used to be covered with cool ocean and then now it's not? Crazy. All right. Geological or earth changes can do all sorts of tricky things to the rocks on Earth's crust. These formations in this national park in Utah show what thousands of years of wind, rain, and ice can do to this type of stone. Wind and rain and ice, they can make this rock smaller, and they can wash it away. Some rocks are mysterious. This is called Uluru. This is Uluru, or it's sometimes called Ayers Rock. It is the only tall thing in an otherwise flat, barren grassland in the middle of Australia. Geologists have figured out that this is a remnant left over from a time when the entire surface there was covered in this type of rock. That a remnant is when something is left over or remaining. Eventually, all the other rock eroded due to wind and rain, and this is the only mound of rock that was left. All right, now we have a cave. Different places tell different stories. Not all interesting rocks are above ground. This photo was taken down in a cave, which is a large hole or space underground. A cave is basically an area in the Earth's crust that has been hollowed out for one reason or another, usually as a result of underground water flowing in and dissolving the rock over millions of years. Caves are really amazing places to explore. People usually don't think too much about what's happening underground, deep below our feet. But the fact is that what happens deep underground has everything to do with what we see in the world around us. Next time, we're going to take a closer look at what's happening in those other layers. I'd better go ahead and fill this hole now. All right? So I'm going to ask you a few questions before we go to our next story. I want you to think about it, all right? What is the Earth mostly made of? Take a couple seconds, think about it. Did you get the answer rocks? Yes, that's the correct answer. Where is the most of that rock located? It is beneath the crust and the other layers. That's right. Was Jerry digging in the crust, the mantle, or the core? We didn't talk about the mantle or the core yet. We're still talking about the crust. Good. And what layer of Earth do we live on? We live on the crust. That's exactly right. All right, so next time we're going to talk about the mantle and the inner and the outer core. All right, see you next time. Bye, y'all.